What's up, everyone?
What's going on, DGN family?
Yo, what's going on? Happy Monday. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Marone?
Doing all right, hanging in there, surviving as good as possible. How about you? How was your weekend?
Surviving. I love that. That's pretty accurate. I think as this pandemic wears on more and more, I'm like, I thought I was doing well with this, but as the weeks go by, I'm like, maybe not so much.
Right? Yeah, you kind of have a different perspective. That's why I'm like surviving. That's where I think we're all at right now.
Right. Thank you so much for the resub, Ray. How is everyone doing? We've got a lot of news to get into. Our agenda for today is we're going to start off with our esports corner and dive into some news about Nitro from CSGO, as well as get into some Tony Hawk Pro Skater news.
We've also got some more news surrounding Fall Guys, as well as a potentially big rumor for the new GTA6.
Also, Assassin's Creed Valhalla news, and we're going to wrap up with Ghosts of Tsushima. So let's get right into it.
Let's dive into this esports corner, because it is Monday, and this is what we do.
So the LCS Summer Slip Playoffs continues August 20th with FlyQuest versus Cloud9.
Keep on the lookout for the Overwatch League starting its 29th week on August 21st with Vancouver Titans versus Boston Uprising, and the LA Gladiators versus the Florida Mayhem.
For CSGO, the ESL1 Cologne online tournament starts tomorrow, August 18th, and continues through the 30th. The North America teams competing on Tuesday are Furia Esports versus Chaos Esports Club, and 100 Thieves versus Gen G.
And also, we have Call of Duty League's Championship, which starts on August 19th with Paris Legion and going up against the Seattle Surge, and Optic Gaming LA versus the LA Gorillas.
Because LA has two teams, because LA. There's also this kind of spicy Hearthstone news, as Hearthstone pro Firebat got an instant loss and a $1,000 fine for not showing up to his match. That was pushed 1 hour before it was originally scheduled. He tweeted that the Grandmasters was 1 hour ahead of schedule, and he didn't set his alarm for 1 hour early, therefore forfeited the match and had to pay a $1,000 fine.
That is because that GM rulebook states that there is a $1,000 fine for failure to participate in a scheduled match as defined in Section 7.6 of that handbook. This deduction does not escalate for subsequent violations by the same player. Now, if a match occurs more than 3 hours before or after the scheduled match time, the penalty is waived.
So America's GM Bloody Face resonates with Firebat, saying, "Not gonna lie, rather NGL, if I beat Firebat yesterday, I probably would have overslept too. America's has the most variable time schedule since we depend on everyone else to finish. Hope we can find a better way to accommodate these scenarios in the future."
It's very true. It can get super difficult with being on the East Coast, Mountain Time, West Coast,
right,
and then trying to maintain those times with maybe other parts in the world. You can totally understand.
Absolutely.
Also, there is America's GM Eddie HS, who almost got DQ'd today, added this to that story. He said, yes, there is a check-in time, but it's super unrealistic time to compare to the actual time playing. Now, on Friday, his check-in time was 11:30 a.m., which they informed us that it might be early and we would need to be ready soon. And it just turns out that the NA broadcast begins at 3 p.m. So his game time started at 5 p.m. And that kind of back and forth's really got to get frustrating.
And he went on to say, I'm not saying that players don't have responsibilities and it's definitely their own fault at the end of the day to miss a match, but having a check-in time that's never relevant towards the actual match time just makes it very hard for the players. Apparently the night before, with America's having the most variable time schedule, some matches were 5 hours later than usual, and this idea that games could be scheduled like 3 hours before after your start time, that's a whole day, for your match. And I understand how, if the start time is never, as early as, as Blizzard says it's going to be, that players are just like, well, I'd rather get more sleep, I'd rather be more prepared versus, just waiting however many hours before this match that might get pushed anyway.
That's true. So when I played football in college, you had a set schedule with everything, but you knew when your match was going to start. There was no lingering around prior to it starting. So they should really start to implement. This is when we talk about there's a structure of traditional sports that does very well. I think that's the disciplined nature of you're doing this at this time, at that at this time. It has this almost kind of militant approach. And maybe we should start introducing that within esports, because then that helps, prevent these things from happening. You also then need to be paying those players for that time. There just needs to be a lot taken into account that they could start doing. And maybe this will be that kind of like wake up call for them.
I think so too, and I hope so, because I know for League of Legends, some people complain that there's too much, downtime in between matches because each match starts on the hour, but they start on the hour because if a game finishes early or if it runs maybe longer than expected, the next team still knows when it's going to go on and they still know their start time, and there isn't that, waiting around, because it is just a waste of time to the players. I understand that, it's an honor to participate in tournaments, but at what point does it just become a burden?
Exactly, yeah, that's the part that you want to avoid, especially if you have some of your best players coming in and you really want to make sure that they're delivering their best performance. That lull in between competition can actually have a very big negative effect. Sometimes people just are ignorant to that, but you have to go through it to be like, hey, can we stop doing this so I don't have to suffer my performance issues?
You just spend a lot of time stressing out, not using your energy as, you should. Which kind of leads us into our next story about CSGO and how Nitro left Counter-Strike a legend and moves on to Valorant with 100 Thieves. And in this story, Nitro touches on, the kind of really grindy culture of CSGO that really did wear down, on his excitement to play.
Exactly, yeah. So as Nick Nitro Canella booted up his PC on July 3rd, it was the last time he was going to sit down in his chair at his Louisiana home for the final day of his 2020 routine.
For the previous 6 months since COVID-19 put the majority of the world into quarantine, the professional Counter-Strike Global Offensive player schedule had changed drastically. From 2019 to 2020, Nitro found himself on the road more than half the year, whether that was in Team Liquid facilities in Los Angeles, Netherlands, or competing in Denmark, Germany, Sweden, or another country. Now, every day was basically the same. Practice, play, eat, sleep, repeat.
And it was eating at him. Last year, Team Liquid was one of the best teams in the world, just second to win the Intel Grand Slam. And the only other team to accomplish the feat was their rival, Astralis. For a brief period of time, Liquid held the #1 title, the title of being #1, and it was the best feeling in the world, quote unquote, according to Nitro. But now they didn't even get to face the best in the world. Liquid, a fully North American squad, became region-locked, unable to play European teams as play moved online, and the star-studded final versus Navi and Astralis, it became repetitive series versus Evil Geniuses, Gen G, and Furia.
Nitro said, I don't think it was mentally healthy to get in the same spot every day and just play against the same exact teams online. Literally the same teams you scrim against in the matches back to back because there were so many tournaments, because all the TOs wanted to keep holding tournaments online because they've got to make money too somehow. It was oversaturation, and us being mentally unhealthy, it was affecting our gameplay.
So, on that early July day, the day before Independence Day in the United States, Nitro thought it could be the last of his routine for the past 6 months. Quarantine had gotten to him, and his and Liquid's performance online was far from the level that the team was playing at the year earlier, when they won the ESL 1 Cologne, the most prestigious non-major event on the Counter-Strike calendar. With a player break on the horizon, thinking about what was next weighed on Nitro's mind.
He said, I felt like I was slacking so bad individually. I was still helping the team out the best I could in other departments of the game, but at the end of the day, it just didn't feel right to me anymore.
And as the player break progressed, Nitro felt more confident about his next move. It was time to leave behind the team he helped build and lead the championship-level heights after more than half a decade. For the first time since early 2015, Nitro would no longer be sporting Liquid's iconic blue and white, and it was time to move on.
Nitro's 5.5-year tenure on Liquid is nearly unheard of in Counter-Strike. Few players get that opportunity. Players such as Gabriel Fallen Toledo, who has led several majority Brazilian squads from Luminosity Gaming to SK Gaming to MIBR, are a rarity. Known for its volatility, Counter-Strike often throws players to the side the moment they begin to slump, but not Nitro. Whenever his skill would come into question, he would quickly remind his bosses, his peers, and Counter-Strike fans why he was Team Liquid's rock. Clutch after clutch, Desert Eagle after Desert Eagle, Nitro continued to stay on top.
Within a week of announcing he was stepping down, he has become Valorant's top free agent, as Nitro confirmed to ESPN that Valorant is his next destination. Surprise, surprise. A rival to Counter-Strike, Riot Games' first-person shooter is the new hot game in esports. Many teams are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on rosters to enter the new game. And of all the Counter-Strike players who have announced their intentions to play the new tactical first-person shooter, Nitro is the most prominent.
Which is why it's no surprise that Nicholas Nitro Canella has signed with 100 Thieves to compete as part of their pro Valorant roster.
Because this move is a part of reconstruction of the entire 100 Thieves lineup, which will be built around the tandem of Nitro and former Counter-Strike teammate Spencer Martin, Hiko Spencer Martin. The two actually played together on Team Liquid's Counter-Strike squad that made the finals of a major championship, the equivalent of the game's World Championship in 2016, which ended up as runners-up at the ESL Cologne.
It sounds like 100 Thieves is off to a good start, getting great players that have even played together. Moving on, it was kind of sad to me hearing this story about how just repetitive and terrible it was to play CSGO, especially during quarantine, and also how, a lot of these teams had to be region locked, because of the ping, because of the lag, because, to play online, there's already, it's already so much less competitive as offline is, that they do have to restrict it to certain regions.
Yeah, this is a good moment for 100 Thieves to take a look at the choices that they're making as they assemble this roster. And when we start to pay attention to them as they begin competing at these top-level tournaments, we're going to see if this is actually paying off. And that is important to take into account, is that the recognition of this assembly of putting these players who've played together and surrounding them with, a good solid team. You could very much potentially see like a Jordan and Pippen type thing, going on within this Valorant team. Or you could see conflict. You could see these individuals coming from a different kind of like mindset. And we know a lot of players from like Overwatch and other competitive shooters are trying to jump into Valorant as a focus. Where does that conflict potentially arise? We'll just have to, wait and see when they start their play.
That's true. And I wonder if the culture around Valorant is going to change at all, because I've heard from, other esports teams, such as in League of Legends before they went to, I think, the franchising model. They were thinking that, okay, with franchising, maybe there's actually going to be more talent development. Maybe people aren't going to be thrown off the roster as quickly. But I don't think they've really seen that, and people are kind of frustrated that it is still so grindy, that the second you don't perform, you're kind of thrown to the wayside, and you have to doubly prove yourself to, get back on the roster, and it's really hard for the players. Especially because it seems like, at least in NA, this pandemic, crisis is going to be going on for a lot longer. My personal estimates were, I think until like next fall. Some people were saying a few years, we'll see what actually happens. But I wonder what that means for the future of esports, because that says to me that, solutions do have to be figured out now, versus just waiting for it to be over.
Yeah, exactly, and hopefully they're all on that same page and having that understanding, as you've kind of put it, since it's gonna be longer here in NA. They do, or they are hopefully addressing those things, and yeah, we'll just be keeping our eye on that to see, and definitely with our next esports roundup, hopefully sooner rather than later, we have an answer in that.
Yes, hopefully, but we do have some fun news. Moving on to the next topic.
This is actually really cool, because if anybody's hyped about a game that's coming back out as a remaster, it is the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I am so hyped about that. But a datamine recently has revealed that Jack Black is going to be a playable character.
So it looks like Jack Black will be playing an infamous character in the upcoming Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, according to New Files datamine from the recently released demo of Activision Skater Sim.
So, as seen on Reddit, an image of Jack Black's likeness has been discovered in the back end of THPS 1 and 2's warehouse demo, dressed in officer uniform with a skateboard in hand.
This appears to confirm that the actor and host of his own gaming YouTube channel will be a playable character in the game as Officer Dick, a staple bonus character of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series that has appeared in a number of Tony Hawk titles dating back to the original Pro Skater of 1999.
Until now, Officer Dick has just been a made-up character, but it looks like Black's likeness is being used to make him that much more memorable for Activision's reboot of its beloved action sports series.
Black, who has a mini skateboard park in his own backyard, recently got to play a preview of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 with the Birdman himself, so it's no surprise that he's turning up in-game, though there's been no official confirmation of such just yet.
Black is also set to star in Psychonauts 2, but it looks like that platforming adventure won't be out until 2021.
I love this video where it's just like him and like Tony Hawk and like other skaters just like chilling. I think This is great news.
It really is. Yeah, he's attacked that gaming YouTube channel by storm, and with such ferocity. It's fun to watch him. He's got a great personality. He's hilarious, and I think this is just a wonderful addition to a game that's already exciting. Is when you get to play as this character. What are his lines going to be? What's some of the humorous moments you're going to discover? This is awesome. I cannot wait for this game to come out.
Me too, and I didn't even know he had a gaming YouTube channel until today, honestly. I knew he had like a
Wow,
TikTok.
really?
Yeah, and he's like big on like TikTok, like big on social media. I didn't know about his YouTube channel.
Yeah, he has a funny one with his son playing Doom Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of watch this moment of him kind of really going into the father-son type experience, but with a game like Doom Eternal.
Right.
Brutality and violence of it kind of being like, maybe you shouldn't be playing a game like this. It's really hilarious.
That's so good. So I hope this gets officially confirmed, because right now this was, a leak from a data mine, but we've also, seen this skater video of him doing spins and tricks. And he also was able to, play a version of the game or the demo, which, hints that he's going to be some part of it.
And I agree with Ray so much on the commentary there with the dog shirt. Anyone who wears a dog shirt has big kudos in my book.
Right.
Big kudos.
Big ups. Love that.
Another thing we love is this next story, which is just more and more wholesome the longer that Fall Guys just sits in public, as the Fall Guys has challenged brands to make the biggest charity donation it can in exchange for a custom skin.
So in response to all the brands eagerly sharing mock-up skins for Fall Guys, as we also kind of mentioned last week on the show, developer Mediatonic has begun a charity competition which will add one branded costume to the game.
And the rules are simple. As Mediatonic explained on Twitter, interested brands should donate to the UK-based charity Special Effect, which helps people with disabilities play video games by getting them tailor-made equipment like special joysticks and controllers. The brand that donates the most money will be immortalized in Fall Guys through a custom skin.
Mediatonic says, we will DM to confirm any boring legal paperwork, and then after they donate, we'll post it publicly to confirm. If we decide that your brand is offensive or unsuitable, we will yeet your pledge out and pick the next highest.
Look, this is a fun and effective way for Mediatonic to wield the domineering fame that Fall Guys has built. Fall Guys is the hottest game in the world right now, and it is no surprise that we've seen everything from KFC skins to Metal Gear Solid skins proposed by the game since the game's launch, and not just by fans, but by massive corporations. By throwing down the charity gauntlet, Mediatonic is telling those brands to put their money where their mouth is.
And it'll be interesting to see what brands actually shell out, and no matter who earns the skin opportunity, Special Effect and the people its work supports will win out in the end. And if you want to support the cause with your own money, you can look up Special Effect. It is a UK-based organization if you'd like to donate on your own.
That is awesome. I love how they took what seemed to be this potential fear for us as consumers, like, oh, is this going to become one of those places where it's just all about money being inserted for marketing, for buy our product and all the stuff that we just don't really want to see anymore. And they were like, fine, if you want to have that conversation, you're going to be charitable with that money, and we're not even going to take it. I'm curious to see who actually comes out on top.
Me too. I think this is a great move to really, force these brands to put their money where their mouth is. And it's like, okay, well, if you're if you want to spend a bunch of money, if you want to have this be, branded marketing thing, like it's going to go to charity, it's going to help the community. It's not going to be a money grab. And it actually, I think it would make me want to support those brands even more. If like, oh, hey, KFC, who has a video game out, like if they donated a bunch of money, to this organization, I would think,
right.
Yeah, they already have that game. There's like a dating simulator.
There's also Burger King. Burger King had a video game that came out on the Xbox 360. I remember where you like play as the king. Wow, you just made me think of this. That I was like, oh my god, there are these games.
TVT, what's up, Dragos? What's up, everyone in the chat? Yeah, I think this is great. I wonder how much money some of these brands will spend, if at all. Because this is an easy built-in marketing campaign. They don't have to, advertise this. The audience is already built in, with Fall Guys. People are going to be watching, who's going to be the highest bidder in terms of donations. I didn't think this company could get better, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And I actually want to say that I hope Amazon's automatically disqualified. I think because with that amount of money, it's a little unfair if they try to like step in and be like, oh, we did the highest charity. It's like, we thank you for the donation, but we don't want to put your face in our game. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I just don't want to see like Amazon skin in Fall Guys. I think I would take any other company at this point, other than if I see more Amazon.
Right, or if there's like a 10-cent skin in Fall Guys, it would be like, really? Like, I'm looking for more. I would assume maybe like a fast food company, maybe because I've seen that. I hear like the Navy was considering having a skin, but we've already talked about like military recruiting in video games and how that might not be a good idea.
Exactly.
So I'm going to assume this is going to be stuck to just like clothing brands and like food brands.
Yeah.
I
want
trust,
to believe that.
Yeah, I trust that this isn't going to be like a big controversy. Like Neon coming in.
But they did kind of give themselves an out.
They did. They did. They were smart.
They still get to decide. So never know what could happen in that regard. But again, these developers are doing a great job with how they're approaching their game, how they're handling the marketing of their game. And it just is overall benefiting the entire public image of Fall Guys.
It is, and also video games where I feel like there's been a resurgence of some new news where people are saying like, oh, like video games are proven to make people violent, and I'm like, does this game seem like it's gonna make anyone violent?
Oh, no.
Like,
who's spouting these lies?
Yeah, I don't know. There's misinformation as always. I try to have people fact check things and not just blindly parrot news that they hear. But with the video games, I'm glad to see wholesome, not necessarily like wholesome games. I mean, I like violent games too, but it's also cool when more wholesome games are popular and they're doing charitable work. A lot of games have been doing a lot of charitable work. I also think Summer Games Done Quick recently started back up, which is another kind of charity and video game program, and it's good to see.
That's just kind of like, this was that conversation I think we had. I forget what was the other game we were talking about, but specifically can use this Fall Guys as an example of like where we want to see more of these developers, distributors, publishers kind of shift their focus is being a community-centered type space, because ultimately the money will come in, the business will rise, because the consumers feel like this isn't a place for you to try to like take as much out of my wallet as possible as a place like Activision and any other type of industry that you see this type of behavior from. The places that do very well for a long period of time are those spots that just focus on what does the community want? How are they going to perceive this choice? What business decisions do we make that are always staying in that kind of mindset? And I just think these guys over at Devolver Digital and these Fall Guys devs have been on top of being hopefully like a trend setter.
I hope so. I think they're really the best example right now of how to build a community online. I think a lot of, game companies kind of talk about that as like a buzzword of like, oh, we're trying to build a community, but what does that really mean?
Right.
Versus like Fall Guys' Twitter account is great. They tweeted saying like, oh, if we removed every level that we were asked to remove, there would be no levels left. And it's just like kind of funny, and you always kind of feel like you're in with them, you're in the Fall Guys discussion. Even though I still haven't played the game yet, I don't feel like I'm like excluded, from participating and like talk about Fall Guys.
Yeah, and I love what Meg was saying is like I love their marketing so much.
It's
because
great.
Their place of marketing is coming from this, this mindset of like what you were saying is yeah, even if you're not a part of the Fall Guys community playing it, you're still a part of the Fall Guys community.
And I like how they, like, with saying, like, oh, we'll yeet out your application.
Yes.
It's like, I thought it was a good example of being, like, silly and gamer, but not being cheesy. Like, who's ever running the account, as Meg said, is doing a great job. And they're not trying to be, like, too buttoned up, too corporate. I think I've recently seen kind of a bigger and bigger divide between, like, what companies think gamers want versus what they actually want. And things that I used to think were like professional or the more appropriate way to do things just seems very out of touch now. So I think it's cool that they're just like this is who we are, like come hang with us.
Exactly. Yeah, the door's open, come and join us. That's a great way to put it. Can't wait to see more of what these guys do over at Fall Guys, but also can't wait to find out who wins this donation. I really hope it's just some obscure company you don't expect that comes out of the woodworks for like this amazing donation for such a good cause.
I hope so too. We'll be looking out to see, who is going to be the biggest donor to Special Effect to finally get that Fall Guys skin.
We are going to jump into our next story, which is one that is very juicy, and we always have to remember that this is a rumor, but it does make sense if we pay attention to the history of GTA, and that is that it could be a PlayStation exclusive for a period of time.
So a new GTA 6 rumor is a huge win for PlayStation 5 and bad news for the Xbox Series X if it is true. Next year, Rockstar Games is bringing GTA and GTA Online to both PS5 and Xbox Series X. At the moment, there's been no confirmation that Grand Theft Auto 6 will follow, but many GTA fans are expecting the game will come out to the next-gen consoles within the next few years. That said, when it does arrive, it sounds like it may only be on one console, at least at first.
So, according to this new rumor, Sony has been in talks with Rockstar Games over making GTA 6 a PlayStation 5 timed exclusive. And this comes out of the way of Foxy UK Games, who claims that the next installment of the Grand Theft Auto series may be coming to the PlayStation 5 first, with Sony and Rockstar Games discussing a deal worth $750 million. And if it goes through, GTA 6 will launch on PlayStation 5 first, remain on it for at least 30 days, and will be expected to have exclusive content also to be involved.
That's a lot of money. So unfortunately, this rumor doesn't divulge any additional details, but this does seemingly piggyback on the recent reports that Sony has been locking up third-party exclusive deals and spending big money in the process. Further, this isn't the first rumor to suggest Sony and Rockstar Games are working on a deal involving the PS5 and GTA 6. And it's also worth pointing out that Sony did give Rockstar Games the first spot at its big PS5 event back in June to announce GTA 5 was coming to PS5 and coming to PS5 first.
In other words, while there's no way to validate the rumor, there's enough interesting context around it to at least hear it out. Now, that said, for now, it is just rumor, so we all want to take it with, speculation, and obviously, be a major grain of salt.
While it's reasonable to think Sony would spend an absurd amount of money to lock GTA 6 behind some timed exclusivity, Rockstar Games and Take-Two Interactive print so much money with GTA that it's hard to imagine that they would be interested in what would wind up being a very controversial deal.
This is where the rumor does fall to I don't see how that could benefit Rockstar, but where I also kind of see is it's situation with Marvel's Avengers and Spider-Man exclusive, yes, Sony does own those rights. But we do kind of have to remember that a lot of the success of Grand Theft Auto was thankful early on to PlayStation, and coming from the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. It took a while before we saw it on Xbox, but then once it transitioned into all the markets, everybody was loving it and enjoying it. I wonder if they did it for like at least 30 days, let's say 60 days, that kind of approach. How much money are they willing to allow Rockstar to get from this deal?
Right, I wonder how much it's going to pay off, for the PlayStation 5, for Sony, if, that is going to be a deciding factor for a lot of consumers to buy the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. GTA 6 is also not, expected to come out for another few years, so if people are planning to buy, a console right now, I don't know if maybe a few years down the line, if they have an Xbox, this would make them also want to buy a PlayStation 5, which I've actually seen with, people who have the Xbox One and bought the PS4. They actually bought it after because Red Dead 2 came to the PS4.
Yeah, this is also something that Dragos just said. I was thinking about as well. Is there's also a little bit of frustration with Rockstar. We've seen how they've handled Red Dead Online
terribly,
and we've seen how they've really been focused on how much money can they make out of GTA Online, which it makes sense. Their business model works. If they were to do this, it could really sully a lot of the interest from the next gen pursuit of Grand Theft Auto from these Xbox Series X transitioners and PC Master Race people if they see this. However, I would say it would probably be more unfortunate for Xbox than for PC, because PC always waits to get their PC version of the console a little bit later. So I think they're more used to it. Whereas maybe actually, now that we say it out loud, maybe this wouldn't be that big of a deal for them to do this kind of exclusive event.
I could see a lot of gamers being really mad about this, but that's a good point. It might not really influence too much in the long run. Thanks so much for the Dono Kai, and thanks so much, Gonzo, for the sub that I saw earlier.
Hey, Gonzo.
As you said, it does seem like they're they're trying to make a lot of money, which I understand their business, but I initially, my thoughts were, GTA 5, GTA Online is still going strong, there's no reason to push out GTA 6 if they're still really popular, but now it just seems like gamers are just getting really impatient. I'm kind of confused as to why this game is coming out so far down the line from GTA 5, if they are just still trying to ride the wave of GTA 5 and, just waiting for GTA 6 because they don't need to push it. At that PS5 event, when we saw GTA 5 in the first slot, all of the comments on YouTube were thinking that it was going to be GTA 6, and it was a big disappointment when it wasn't.
Yeah, and their whole, it's going to get new content specifically for the PlayStation 5. You might have some PC players there being like, well, why don't we get that content if it's, it's comparable? So this could be where we start to see these, unfortunately, these kind of like gates start to go up for consumers to get to experience certain content. They have to go through these specific hardware and restrictions. This is where, unfortunately, it's kind of like when microtransactions blew up, started to see them everywhere, and that basically became the way the industry is, and now we're kind of used to it. We might have to start getting used to this with our games.
I feel like I was just getting used to games coming out on, more platforms or more consoles, at the same time, and now this is the opposite. As someone who plans on buying the PS5, this is okay for me. I think I breathe a sigh of relief every time I hear that there's going to be PlayStation exclusives, because I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like, if I play Marvel's Avengers, I get the exclusive content. Right, like, it's okay for me. I feel like if I were, planning on getting an Xbox Series X, I would just be getting more stressed out.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the conversation I've been reading, and of course not wanting to get into the whole like, man, DGN just only seems to say things negative about the Xbox Series X, but a lot of people have questioned what is going to happen with the Xbox Series X with that Halo delay, and what does that mean, and if this rumor is swirling, it just could be where these developers and some of these major players are like, PlayStation 5 is where I kind of want to be at. I feel, more trusting to the hardware and to the company itself. If we pay attention for the past decade, they've done a huge 180 and they've monstered the gaming industry.
Absolutely. And it's not just, a difference of, maybe there are a few exclusives,
Right.
some legendary games like The Last of Us, God of
Right.
War. It's still okay. I'll still buy an Xbox. Now it's just there's so much exclusive content piling on. And, when we heard about the Avengers news, I was thinking, maybe it's not enough to sway anyone, but if it's Avengers and it's GTA and it's other games, and it seems like there's going to be more exclusive content only for the PlayStation 5 that's, slated to come out that we just haven't heard about yet.
Yeah.
I feel like all of that, accumulated together makes a much stronger case for PlayStation.
It does. We will be looking into more juicy rumors surrounding GTA 6. Hopefully Rockstar will come out and make some sort of announcement. Don't expect that anytime soon, but you never know with the way things are.
You never know. So our next story is some Assassin's Creed Valhalla news, or rather Ubisoft news, that I believe broke last week.
That is right. And this is something that we do know, which is Assassin's Creed Valhalla's creative director has been fired.
So, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is set to be one of the biggest game releases of the year, with the game's Viking setting having widespread appeal among fans. However, the game has been somewhat overshadowed by the ongoing controversies at Ubisoft, as the company deals with various abuse and misconduct allegations levied at both its executives and creative talents. This has included Assassin's Creed Valhalla's creative director Ashraf Ismail, who has now been fired from the company.
So back in June, news broke that Assassin's Creed Valhalla's creative director, Ashraf Ismail, was being accused of attempting to engage in extramarital relations with a fan that he met through his position at Ubisoft.
Yikes.
Yeah, once these accusations came to light, Ismail stepped down from his position at Assassin's Creed as Assassin's Creed Valhalla's creative director, and Ubisoft conducted an investigation into those claims. It was said by Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who has confirmed that Ubisoft has effectively fired Ismail from the company entirely due to the results of the investigation.
Ubisoft has not revealed exactly what it discovered during the investigation. It's possible that Ismail was fired based on the conduct that saw him step down from his role as creative director, but it's also possible that other things were discovered during the investigation. It's unlikely that the results of Ubisoft's investigation will be made public, so all fans can do is speculate unless the company or Ismail releases a more detailed statement on the matter.
This is what Schreier tweeted. He said, Ismail had said in June that he was stepping down from his role but remained employed by Ubisoft. This week, Ubisoft informed staff that he had indeed been fired. Ubisoft confirmed to Bloomberg News that Ismail was dismissed following a company investigation.
So it's not clear whether Ubisoft's investigation found other incidents of misconduct or wrongdoing, but it's important to know that he wasn't fired for, quote, cheating on his wife. He met the fan through his position as a Ubisoft public figure and director of Assassin's Creed. So there's clearly, an imbalance there. It's not professional. He was there at this event as a public figure representing Ubisoft and the director of Assassin's Creed, and proceeded to engage, in this behavior.
Yeah, and even with Ismail gone, though, the Assassin's Creed franchise will still move forward. While Ismail served as director for Assassin's Creed Origins, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was spearheaded by Jonathan Dumont and Scott Phillips. So there is plenty of proven creative talent at Ubisoft that can deliver high-quality, critically acclaimed Assassin's Creed games.
In the meantime, it will be interesting to see how this situation impacts the reception of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's possible that the negative publicity could in turn have a negative impact on the game's sales, but that remains to be seen. Fans will find out when the Assassin's Creed Valhalla release date rolls around in November. Personally, this makes me feel better about Assassin's Creed because I'm like, he's gone. If I buy this game, I'm not, supporting this terrible person, even though, some of his work or a lot of his work is in this game.
Yeah, when we first discovered the Ubisoft allegations and everything that was going on surrounding them, the investigation, we talked a lot about making sure that they actually address these things to the fullest extent, and that, you know, no matter who those people might be that are involved. I think we even said like the CEO, if he had no awareness and was actually ignorant to all this stuff. I will say it does actually seem by this choice, you know, maybe he wasn't aware of it going on, or he was left with no choice because it became public, was, yeah, you are the creative director, but you just can't be here anymore. And that message is important no matter what's behind it. We should, yes, if he is aware of what was going on, he should be held accountable. But I hope this does that ripple effect of, we don't see behavior like this from other major companies or game developers anymore.
Absolutely. As Ray says, I don't think it will negatively impact sales a lot. I think they made the right decision by firing him instead of letting it continue. I absolutely co-sign that, agree with that. When I hear, you know, these stories about abuse, when I hear these allegations, you know, especially in the workplace, I want to see people fired. I want to see people step down. I want to see people held accountable. I don't want just an empty promise of like, oh, we're going to change the corporate culture. Because I've heard from some people who have worked at some of these companies where there is, you know, a big scandal of sorts. They just try to address it by making all the employees go to seminars about, you know, how to not be sexist. And it's like, okay, that might help, but, you know, I think that it's better. You know, it seems like a lot of these people have had a record of behavior. This is, you know, a repeat thing. It's not just a, you know, it's not just a one-time deal, you know, to have people, you know, removed from the company, removed from their positions, and especially removed from their positions of power. So I'm really glad to see this. I want to see, I guess, more examples of concrete action like this take place. And I'm glad to see Assassin's Creed Valhalla sail on, you know, without the creative director.
Yeah, you know, and they gave us words of comfort, as you know, the people that are involved and surrounding it. And just because Ismail's gone from Ubisoft, it doesn't mean that they're going to lack creative vision or have, you know, people at the helm. Yeah, I was just looking at Ray's comment as well with, you know, people playing dangerous games at work. Maybe people just need to be professional instead. That is what it should be. I mean, just a kind of like side thought to this whole thing is like, I don't know how people think like this in the positions that they're in. How they're like, I can make this decision because I'm this entity or this public figure. Like, this is, I don't, it's just hard for me to wrap my head around him doing this or anyone doing stuff like this.
Right, it's like you're at work, so behave like you're at work.
Right.
I don't know if this also maybe kind of bleeds into the conversation about, you know, the Me Too movement in gaming and how a lot of that happened at conventions, because a lot of people, you know, do see conventions as kind of like, oh, we're all partying together and we're all making friends, and it's like, okay, you can have fun, but, you know, always remember that you're, you know, representing your company, your brand, yourself, you know, your actions, even in a party setting, like, still represent you, still represent who you are, and you can still be inappropriate, and, like, it's not like you're excused from doing certain things at all.
Yeah, that's the part where, I don't know. I mean, I've never been in like that kind of position before, and I'm not sure how that can kind of like mess with your mind. But I just feel like who I am internally, if I was in that position, that thought would be like, you don't do that.
No.
Like, even if the thought popped in my head and I didn't share it with anybody, the immediate thought to follow that would be like, don't do
that.
You know? But then you have like these people who they get into and they're like, maybe I can get away with it. And it's like, how did you get there in that position? That's scary.
Right? It's so bizarre and such like a lapse of logic. I think it's interesting that, you know, Schreier specifically pointed out that he wasn't fired for cheating on his wife. I just thought that was interesting. I mean, like, I guess cheating on your wife isn't a fireable offense, but I probably still wouldn't want to support your game if I knew that you did that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is it's the publicly it's like, nah, you shouldn't do that, but it's not like you can, you know, fire somebody over that choice. But when they use their position as a public figure in order to do something like this, that's when it's like, okay, now it's become a fireable offense, because you've in fact exploited this power essentially that you have, and should have never ever been thought of in the first place to be used this way, let alone acted upon.
I'm a little suspicious that maybe there's more cases of things like this at Ubisoft, because it does seem like there are multiple people that have been inappropriate, in the workplace setting. I hope this isn't just the tip of the iceberg, hearing about these most high profile people, but at least maybe it gives hope for, if there are, more people in maybe middle management that haven't been rooted out yet, that this maybe gives victims, more, I guess more courage or more backing or more legitimacy to, step out and speak out against those.
Agreed. And this could, be a rough patch right now for Ubisoft, but this could be really good for the future. We could really see a lot of amazing things come out of this time period of rebuilding, and setting a new path of, we're not going to have people who work here that behave like this. So what does that mean for the future of Ubisoft's titles? What does that mean for Assassin's Creed Valhalla? Where do we see it go? What direction does it take? It right now is that moment of, let us make sure that justice is served, and let's move on and grow from it.
I hope that this is seen as an overall positive of, hey, there were these terrible people that worked here, they're gone now, we're moving on from that, we hold ourselves to a high standard, versus like this big stain of like, oh, well, this whole like thing happened with Ubisoft, like sucks for Ubisoft, they're a bad company. It should be seen as like, no, they actually address the issue, if they truly are, addressing the issue at its core. I think it should be seen as they address the issue and they're moving on from that, and I hope that sets an example for other companies, if they do want to fire anyone because of allegations or because of the investigations, that result from that it isn't seen as shameful, that it's seen as actually a good thing.
Very much. Couldn't agree more with that. So let's see, obviously how Assassin's Creed Valhalla is going to be when that drops, coming up sometime in the fall of this year, November, and or October. I keep November? I get it flipped with Cyberpunk, because I'm only focused on November for Cyberpunk.
Right. We'll see what happens. We'll see if we hear more buzz about what people think about this game. I already have a pre-order. Apparently, when I ordered PC parts, it was bundled in, so I'm ready to go.
Nice. Yeah. Unintentional pre-order.
Yeah.
This next story we do have is really cool, because what was interesting is there was a commentary from Ghost of Tsushima's developers early on in the week, or a couple weeks ago, where they were like, we don't rule out multiplayer. And people were like, oh, that's really interesting. And now this Legend update has been dropped, and I gotta say, man, I am so impressed with what Sucker Punch has done with this game.
They've been doing such a great job. So Legends, which was announced, is an entirely new experience. It's a separate mode that doesn't follow Jin or the companions from his journey, but instead focuses on 4 warriors who have been built up as legends in stories told by the people of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima's single-player campaign focuses on an open world and exploring the natural beauty of the island, but Legends is haunting and fantastical, with locations and enemies inspired by Japanese folktales and mythology, and an emphasis on cooperative combat and action.
You heard that right. Cooperative combat and action. So, Sucker Punch has said that we designed Legends to be an exclusively cooperative gameplay experience. So you will be able to partner up with friends via online matchmaking and play Legends in a group of 2 to 4 players. Each player can choose from one of 4 different character classes. You have the samurai, you have a hunter, you have a ronin, and you have an assassin. Each class has unique advantages and abilities that they plan to reveal in the future.
With 2 players in Ghost of Tsushima Legends, you'll be able to play a series of co-op story missions that escalate in difficulty, building on the foundation of combat from the single-player campaign, but with new magical twists that often require careful synchronization with your partner.
So, with 4 players, you'll be able to take on wave-based survival missions, fighting groups of the toughest enemies Tsushima has to offer, including new Oni enemies with supernatural abilities.
If you can best the story and survival missions, you may be confident enough to take on the 4-player raid that will arrive shortly after the launch of Ghost of Tsushima Legends, sending you and your partners to an entirely new realm to challenge a brutal, terrifying enemy.
It's been so rewarding. They said this is Sucker Punch speaking, saying it's been so rewarding to see the amazing reactions from all of you who play through Ghost of Tsushima. And we've been watching so many of you stream your playthroughs and cannot wait to open this new way for all of us to play together. We're happy to offer this mode completely free to Ghost of Tsushima owners as a thank you to our players. And we look forward to hearing what you think.
Sucker Punch continued to say we'll have much more to share on Legends as we get closer to launch, including details on character classes, customization, and more. Thank you to everyone for your support of Ghost of Tsushima so far. I think it's mad cool that this is free. This isn't a DLC at all.
You don't have to pay for this? I mean, you're talking a entirely new aspect to experiencing this game. That they're just like, here you guys go, have fun. And what I find awesome is that they were like, has nothing to do with the characters that you love to play as or learn about in the game. It just has everything to do with you and your friends or you and people online working together to overcome these PvE elements.
And the trailer looks so different from what you see on screen right now, which is the normal single player campaign. In Legends it was all red and mystical and it's very magical and it's it doesn't have to do with Jin, it's a total spin-off, which makes me totally jump the gun and think like, will we ever get like Tsushima Online? Like, is this going to continue? But that's thinking way far ahead.
I like it. Keep it going.
But I think it's, cool that they've had this in the bag, the whole time. I'm sure, I don't know how long it takes to create, a co-op experience like that, but I doubt they worked on this recently. I think they've been working on this for a while.
They just yesterday.
They were like, yo, wouldn't it be cool if we had a co-op? And I think it's great that, this game was set up for success and they anticipated that and are continuing on, with the new content.
That is so true, because I think when we first saw this game and we started to see it get played and saw how it got carried out, it's kind of the same you felt with like The Witcher, where you're like, I'd love to be able to play this game with someone else. Like, just that experience alone, what would that be like? Mm-hmm. And I recognize that Sucker Punch they had this roadmap, but I don't feel like they let anyone know. So your whole thing on like, is there a potential like Tsushima Online? I would not be shocked if they were like, oh, and guess what, guys? We're going to have this basically like MMO GTA Online type experience with Tsushima Online. And you get to pick your class and create your samurai and potentially fight other samurais, which is making me think of a game called Absolver. Do you remember this title?
I don't think I played it. No.
Absolver was like this fully online world where you were trying to be the best fighter. It was like melee combat.
Oh, wow.
Three fighting styles you pick from. It failed in execution, but it was a great premise. I wonder if that would be the same case in this game, where you would have like such and such as like the best samurai in Tsushima Online, and you would walk around with that title in this virtual world.
That would be so cool. That would be rad. I also want to congratulate Sucker Punch on announcing this without any leaks, because pretty much half of what we end up reporting on is really leaks and data mines, because that's how a lot of news gets shared. So congratulations that this information was not data mined. I think this makes this a doubly successful launch. If you look at a lot of, gaming news outlets today, this is, one of the top stories, if not the top story, that this Legends mode is coming out. So I think it's a big deal.
It really is, and what I like, and from what I was seeing, was like they're gonna have these like supernatural enemies, and they're gonna have these these magical twists that require careful synchronization with your partner. So what are those moments gonna look like? What are those clips that we're gonna see people throw on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, where they're just like, take a look at what happened in Ghost of Tsushima, playing this new Legends mode. I think this is gonna be. It's definitely much needed right now in the pandemic and everyone isolated, like to have this experience where you could play together as friends. But I also was looking at the classes. You have the samurai, you have the hunter, you have the ronin, and you have the assassin. And so it's like what is that? How you guys approach, this section that you're maybe moving into? You got to think like the assassins got to infiltrate and not be seen and get themselves into position. Your Ronin's going to be like your up front fighter kind of person, along with like your samurai who's going to be side to side, and then you got the hunter who's clearly going to be like your ranger or whatever. So I mean, I'm thinking of what this gameplay would feel like, and it gets me really excited, even if it's just for Legends alone.
Right, and how, that works, how you synergize, how you work as a team, with each of you having your own roles. It sounds like that they're going to have a lot of different play styles, with those different roles, which I think adds, an exciting element. This isn't just like co-op of you're both basically playing Jin, this is, you each have a different element to bring, and something new to offer to the team. I also think that this is a great way to kind of fill the gap in Ghost of Tsushima that some people, when they bought this game, I think they thought it was going to be a little more fantastical, kind of like Sekiro, where there was more like demons or kind of, a supernatural element, but that wasn't there. And I think this is a nice way to kind of accompany the main story of like, no, like Ghost of Tsushima campaign is more grounded, more kind of in the real world, and this is kind of the offshoot and the thing that we thought some people might also like or anticipated when they bought the game.
There's the element of the supernatural feeling with like the wind guiding you, all that stuff. And you make a really strong observation there. It also makes me wonder too, if Legends comes out and does well, could you perceive the community, the PlayStation community, kind of like attack Legends the way we've seen people attack Warzone? Like, how many people play Warzone but don't really play, Call of Duty campaign or play the multiplayer or anything like that? Mm-hmm. They really just play it for Warzone. Could this be an update where you see more people come to play it because they're like, yeah, I just get to play with my friends, and this game is so much fun because when you play it, you're like, I really love this combat. This combat is amazing.
It might be the thing that actually not overshadows the game, but ends up being, more popular or more successful. Yeah. I think a lot of games have been trying to do that, of having like the main campaign and do an offshoot multiplayer, even with like Halo Infinite and, Halo Infinite multiplayer being a free version. Makes me wonder if this is ever going to be separate from Ghost of Tsushima, if it does become really popular, or if it's always going to be bundled together. That's a good point. I think most of the missions are, still story driven, but there is, those waves. We know people like, survival based, wave based combat, like COD Zombies, people love. I could see this, taking on a life of its own and having a strong community, as you said.
Yeah, and if they go the route of like unlocking skins for your different warriors, you have a Ronin, you have your assassins, you get to create all these different aspects. If that customization gets added to it, and the waves are genuinely challenging and they're updating that, it could become, the more I think about it, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. Because you just talked about COD Zombies. Zombies was what indeed drew the majority of the people to that game. Was the Zombies gameplay and how much fun it was to play with your friends, and how long can we survive, that could be what we see here, and I would imagine they might even add new classes at some point. I mean, there's a lot of potential here with this Legends update that I'm just foreseeing the more and more as we discuss this story. That could do like a GTA Online, as GTA Online did overcome the GTA 5 gameplay, single player experience.
Right. This might be a great jumping off, point, for Sucker Punch to take Ghost of Tsushima even more online. Ray says, I love campaigns. I always play those first before I do multiplayer. So I bought COD Modern Warfare, played the campaign on stream, and everyone who came in was like, what are you doing? Just play multiplayer. And I'm like, I like playing the campaign. I want to play the campaign before multiplayer. And everyone's like, why? So I think for Ghost of Tsushima, the campaign
That's hilarious.
I know.
What are you doing?
Literally, they were just like confused. Like, people just had no idea what I thought I was doing.
That sounds like that community. That just does right there.
And with Ghost of Tsushima, I think, the main story is still going to be, a a great thing to play on its own. I don't think it's going to be quite that level ever of just like, why would you even play the campaign? But I do see the potential for, you know, for Legends to really have a life of its own.
Yeah, and they have positioned themselves to be able to do that. The more we learn about Legends, the more we will share on DGN. But that does bring us to the end of the Daily Gaming News Hour for this Monday, August 7th.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Monday, as we kick back into it. Thanks for joining us on our Esports Corner to keep up with. Maybe there's some teams you want to check out, some esports you want to check out, you know, some drama in the scene, talking about all things gaming. Coming up, as always, we've got our On This Day in Gaming on Thursday, and for our mailbag segment, we're still taking questions, suggestions, anything you'd like us to talk about.
Also, don't forget that it looks like it's going to be this Friday that we're going to have our first interview session with a game developer and showing off their game coming out. And also tomorrow, I did catch this right before we jumped onto DGN. It looked like there's more Cyberpunk things to share.
Nice.
So make sure to tune in, as there was a new trailer that they released for Cyberpunk. It was like a detective trailer, which I was like, oh my God. Is this also a detective game too?
Oh, I love that. Interesting. And
right?
As always, we're going to be running reruns of this show as well as Friday's show, you know, right after we wrap up here. If you're watching a VOD, you can catch us live from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific every weekday. And our chat is lit, so come hang out.
That is right. The DGN fam is amazing. So thank you so much for liking, subscribing, donating, and just helping us continue to grow. But again, for Daily Gaming News, this is it for us today. We will be back tomorrow. I am Marrone.
I am Kaisa. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
See you next time.